Welcome to our deep dive today. We're tackling how to be a better person, even when life feels like it's throwing everything it can at you. And to help us with this, we're going to be taking a look at this really awesome podcast episode called Engage and Grow. They have a ton of tips for just everyday goodness.
Yeah, and you know what I really like about this episode is that it focuses on these small, consistent actions, not like those huge dramatic gestures. It's all about how to just weave goodness into your everyday life.
Yeah, it's not about becoming a superhero
Why?
overnight, right? It's more about those little habits, those tiny acts of kindness that can really build up.
Exactly. It's about those small choices that add up over time and really shape who you are and the world around you.
Okay, so their first tip is about starting your day with purpose. Even if your first instinct is to hit that snooze button, maybe a few times.
Yeah, the episode emphasizes that motivation can be fleeting. So instead of relying on that, it's about creating a routine that helps you stick with it, even on those days when you just want to stay in bed.
Yeah, because if you start your day already feeling scattered and overwhelmed, that tends to linger throughout the day, right? But if you can find even just a small way to center yourself, set an intention, it can make a huge difference.
The episode even suggests an exercise you can try before you reach for your phone. Just take a deep breath and think of one thing you want to achieve that day. It could be anything, like staying calm during your commute, being more patient with a coworker.
Oh, so it's like instead of waking up and diving straight into the chaos of emails and social media, you just hit the pause button for a sec before the day even really starts.
Exactly. And the best part is that this isn't just some feel-good idea. Science actually backs this up. Starting your day with even a small act of intention can actually improve your focus, reduce stress levels, and even improve your mood.
Really? Are you saying that taking like 30 seconds to picture myself not getting annoyed by traffic could actually make my commute better?
That's the power of setting an intention. And it's not about controlling everything that happens. It's about controlling how you react to whatever the day throws at you.
Okay, I am officially intrigued. What about you, listener? Do you have any kind of morning ritual that helps set the tone for your day?
Now, their second tip is about gratitude and how to find it, even when things are, let's say, less than perfect. It's easy to focus on what's going wrong. But this episode challenges us to look for those little glimmers of good.
Right. And I feel like we've all heard about like gratitude journals and all that. But what's interesting here is how they talk about it literally rewiring your brain. Have you heard of this concept called neuroplasticity?
It's amazing. It basically means that your brain can change and adapt based on your experiences. And the more you focus on the positive, the more your brain starts looking for it automatically.
So let me get this straight. If I spend my day complaining about everything that annoys me, my brain is actually getting better at finding things to complain about. But if I try to notice the good stuff, even the little things, my brain gets better at finding those instead.
That's a great way to put it. It's like you're training your brain to be a happiness detective, always on the lookout for things to appreciate.
That's a game changer. It's not about pretending everything's perfect. It's about choosing where you focus your attention. So even on those crazy days when everything seems to be going wrong, there's always something, even a tiny thing, to be grateful for.
The Engage and Grow episode really emphasizes that finding just one small thing can shift your whole perspective even just a little bit. It's a powerful way to interrupt that spiral of negativity.
It's like that saying, right? When life gives you lemons make lemonade, maybe your whole day is a mess. But hey, at least you had an amazing cup of coffee this morning. That counts, right?
Absolutely. And the more you practice finding these little moments of gratitude, the easier it becomes. Your brain really does rewire itself to seek out the good, even in the middle of chaos.
All right, on to tip number 3. And I think we can both relate to this one. It's about embracing imperfection. Because let's face it, none of us are perfect.
Oh, absolutely not. And the episode reminds us that striving for perfection, it just sets us up for disappointment and self-criticism. It's about being kind to ourselves, even when we mess up.
It's so easy to get caught in that trap of like, I should be doing this and that and this other thing. Like I should be meditating for an hour every day, running a marathon, starting a side hustle, and be a perfect parent, friend, partner, all at the same time.
Exactly. And that pressure is just completely overwhelming. The Engage and Grow hosts really encourage us to just celebrate our humanness, to acknowledge that we're all going to have bad days, make mistakes, and that's okay.
You remember that time I tried to bake that cake for your birthday? I followed the recipe perfectly, I swear. But when I took it out of the oven, it was a complete disaster. Totally sunken in the middle. I was so frustrated.
But what did you do?
I laughed. I mean, what else could I do? It was a total baking fail. But at the end of the day, it was just a cake. We ordered pizza, and it ended up being a hilarious story.
And that's a perfect example of how embracing imperfection can actually lead to connection and joy. Those moments when things don't go as planned often make the best stories.
Yeah, they remind us that we're all in this together, just trying to figure things out. Sometimes we stumble along the way.
And those stumbles are part of what makes life interesting. They're opportunities to learn, grow, and connect with others.
So instead of beating ourselves up for not being perfect, let's give ourselves permission to be human, to laugh at our mistakes and learn from them.
That's a great way to sum it up. Embracing imperfection is a key ingredient in both self-compassion and building genuine connections.
Now, this next tip is for those moments when you hit that afternoon slump and just feel your energy draining away. The Engage and Grow episode talks about this awesome concept. They call it micro resets. I want you listeners to think about your own day for a second. When do you feel that urge to just close your eyes and disappear?
Yeah, and it's not about taking a week-long vacation. It's about finding those tiny pockets of time throughout the day to just recharge.
They talk about taking a few minutes to just breathe, deeply stretch, or even just step outside for some fresh air. It's like hitting the pause button on your day, even just for a minute or two.
And you guessed it, there's science behind this too. These micro resets actually help lower your cortisol levels.
Wait, remind me, cortisol is...
Cortisol is the stress hormone. When we're stressed, our bodies pump out cortisol, which can lead to all kinds of problems like anxiety fatigue and trouble focusing.
So these mini breaks are basically like a secret weapon against stress.
Exactly. By taking a few minutes to breathe, deeply stretch, or simply shift your focus, you're giving your body a chance to regulate those cortisol levels and calm down.
Hold on. You're telling me that stepping away from my computer for 5 minutes to do some yoga is not me being lazy. It's actually a strategic move to boost my productivity and well-being.
That's right. And these micro resets don't have to be complicated. Even just closing your eyes and focusing on your breath for a minute or two can make a huge difference.
I love that these tips are all about finding those small, doable things we can fit into our day.
It's about making conscious choices to support our well-being even when we're busy.
Which leads us perfectly into the next tip. Showing up for others even when it's hard. We've all been there. Those days when you're just feeling drained and overwhelmed, and the last thing you want to do is put someone else's needs before your own.
The Engage and Grow host shares a really relatable story about feeling hesitant to help a friend, but ultimately realizing that showing up actually made them feel better. It's like this unexpected boomerang of positivity.
Oh my gosh. I know exactly what you mean. Sometimes when I'm feeling down, helping someone else almost feels selfish because it makes me feel so much better. It's like this secret superpower. Helping others helps you too.
And once again, science backs this up. Helping others triggers the release of endorphins. Those feel good chemicals in our brain.
So even when you're feeling drained, sometimes the most selfless act is also the most self-caring. It's like this win-win where everyone benefits.
And that ties into this beautiful idea of interconnectedness. That runs through the whole Engage and Grow episode. We're not isolated individuals. We're part of this larger web of relationships. And our actions, no matter how small, have an impact that extends far beyond ourselves.
Wow, that's a powerful thought. We really do have this incredible power to create positive change just by choosing to show up for each other, even in small ways.
And remember, showing up doesn't have to be this grand gesture. Sometimes it's just a simple text message, a listening ear, a moment of shared laughter. It's about those little acts of presence and connection that remind us we're not alone in this human experience.
Okay, getting a little teary-eyed over here. That's just beautiful. So listener, as we move into our next tip, which is all about celebrating those tiny wins, I have a question for you. What's one small victory you've had recently that maybe you haven't fully acknowledged yet? It could be anything. Finishing a challenging task, making a healthy choice, or even just getting through a tough day with your sanity intact.
The Engage and Grow episode emphasizes the importance of recognizing and celebrating these small wins because they build momentum and reinforce that idea that you are capable of achieving your goals.
And it feels good.
Yeah.
To just pause even for a second and say, hey,
Yeah.
I did that. I showed up for myself. I made a positive choice. It's like giving yourself a high five and a little boost of confidence to keep going.
And celebrating those small wins also connects back to that dopamine release we talked about earlier. When we achieve something, even if it's small, our brains reward us with a surge of dopamine, which strengthens that behavior and motivates us to keep striving.
So taking a moment to acknowledge those small wins is like a brain hack for happiness and success. I'm here for it. Now we're on to the final tip from the Engage and Grow episode, for this part of our deep dive, and it's one that I think is so important. Be kind to yourself.
This is the foundation of everything we've talked about so far. You can't pour from an empty cup. Taking care of your own well-being, both physically and emotionally, it's not selfish, it's essential.
Absolutely. The Engage and Grow episode guides listeners through a short mindfulness exercise. They suggest you take a deep breath, close your eyes, and repeat a positive affirmation to yourself. I'm going to try it with you, listener. Take a deep breath and hold it, and now exhale slowly. Repeat this affirmation to yourself as you breathe. I am worthy of kindness and compassion.
Amazing, right? Even just a few moments of stillness like that can completely shift your mindset and reduce stress. And the science backs this up too. Studies show that self-compassion can reduce stress, boost resilience, and even improve your immune function.
It's like the ultimate act of self-care, right? Treating ourselves with the same gentleness and understanding that we would offer a loved one.
Exactly, and this is something we can practice every day in small ways. It might be choosing to speak to ourselves with kindness, forgiving ourselves for mistakes, or simply acknowledging our strengths and accomplishments.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. From starting our day with intention to practicing self-compassion. What's the key takeaway for you so far?
For me, it's the reminder that being a good person isn't about being perfect. It's about making those conscious choices to show up for ourselves and for others, even in those small ways. It's about those little acts of kindness, gratitude, and self-care that add up over time and create that ripple effect of positivity.
I love that. And remember, listener, these are just starting points. The Engage and Grow episode is full of even more insights and tips, and we encourage you to check it out and keep exploring these ideas. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I have a question for you to think about. Which of these tips resonated with you the most? And how can you apply it today to show up as a better, kinder version of yourself? We'll be back with part 2 to dive even deeper into the nuances and challenges of living a good life. So stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into everyday goodness. I'm excited to keep exploring these practical tips from the Engage and Grow podcast.
Me too. In part 1, we covered so much ground, starting with the power of intention, the science of gratitude, and even embracing our perfectly imperfect selves. But I'm ready to get even more practical and explore how we can actually apply these ideas to our everyday lives.
You're right. The Engage and Grow episode really emphasizes that it's not about those big dramatic gestures. It's about those small, consistent actions we take that really make a difference.
Exactly. Like, saving the world is great and all, but maybe I can start by not snapping at my partner when they leave their dishes in the sink. Small steps, big impact. Which reminds me, we still need to dig into their tip about showing up for others, even when it's hard.
Yeah, this is where things can get tricky. We've all been there, exhausted, overwhelmed. And the last thing we feel like doing is putting someone else's needs before our own.
Totally. The Engage and Grow host tells this super relatable story about feeling hesitant to help a friend move, but then realizing that the act of showing up actually made them feel better. It's like this unexpected boomerang of positivity.
And it makes sense when you think about the science behind it. Studies have shown that helping others releases endorphins. You know, those amazing feel-good chemicals in our brains?
Wait, so you're saying that even when I'm feeling totally drained, helping someone else can actually give me an energy boost?
It's counterintuitive, right? But sometimes focusing on someone else's needs can be the best way to take a break from our own worries and gain a fresh perspective.
It's like that saying, the best way to cheer yourself up is to try to cheer somebody else up. I love that.
And it reinforces this beautiful idea of interconnectedness that the Engage and Grow episode keeps coming back to. We're not isolated individuals. We're all part of this larger web of relationships. And our actions, even the smallest ones, have this ripple effect and impact the people around us.
Okay, that gave me chills.
Yeah.
It's like we have this superpower to make the world a better place just by showing up for each other.
Exactly. And remember, showing up doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing. Sometimes it's a quick phone call, a listening ear, offering to help with a chore. It's those little acts of presence and connection that remind us we're not alone in this crazy thing called life.
Now let's talk about their tip about celebrating those tiny wins. I'm curious, listener, what's one small victory you've achieved recently that maybe you haven't fully acknowledged yet? It could be anything. Did you finish a challenging project at work? Resist that extra cookie after dinner? Or make it through a stressful family gathering without losing your cool?
The Engage and Grow episode emphasizes how important it is to recognize and celebrate these small wins, no matter how small they seem, because they help us build momentum and reinforce that idea that we're capable of achieving our goals.
Plus, just feels good, right? To pause for a moment and say, hey, I did that. It's like a little shot of motivation.
Yeah.
and a reminder that we're actually making progress.
Exactly. And remember that dopamine release we talked about. When we achieve something, even something small, our brains reward us with this surge of dopamine, which helps us form those positive habits and stay motivated.
It's like we're hacking our own brains for happiness and success. Sign me up. Now on to the final tip from the Engage and Grow episode. Be kind to yourself.
This one is so important. You can't pour from an empty cup. Taking care of yourself both physically and emotionally is not selfish, it's essential.
The episode encourages listeners to try a short mindfulness exercise, where you take a deep breath, close your eyes, and repeat a positive affirmation to yourself. And it's really amazing how much impact even just a few moments of stillness can have on your well-being.
The science of self-compassion is so fascinating, and studies have shown that it has some pretty amazing benefits. Practicing self-kindness can actually reduce stress, boost your resilience, and even strengthen your relationships with others.
It's like this ripple effect, right? When we're kinder to ourselves, we naturally become kinder to those around us.
Exactly. But I think the challenge for a lot of people is actually putting this into practice. We're often so quick to judge ourselves and hold ourselves to these impossibly high standards.
We're our own worst critics.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in that cycle of negative self-talk.
The Engage and Grow episode offers a really helpful suggestion. Try talking to yourself the way you would talk to a close friend who's struggling. Would you criticize them for making a mistake? Would you tell them they're not good enough? Of course not. So why do we do that to ourselves?
That's such a good point. We deserve the same compassion and understanding that we would offer to anyone we care about.
And remember, self-care isn't just about bubble baths and face masks, although those can be lovely. It's about making choices that nourish your mind, body, and soul. It's about setting boundaries, saying no when you need to, and prioritizing activities that bring you joy and fulfillment.
That's a beautiful way to frame it. Self-care is about honoring your own needs and taking care of yourself, so you can show up as the best version of yourself.
Exactly. And I think that's a great place to pause for this part of our deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from the science of gratitude to the power of self-compassion.
It's amazing how much we've unpacked from just one episode. And what I love is that it all comes back to this idea that being a good person isn't about being perfect. It's about making those small conscious choices each day to show up for ourselves and for others.
I totally agree. And I think the Engage and Grow episode does a great job of highlighting that it's not about those big dramatic actions. It's about those little everyday moments of kindness, gratitude, and self-compassion that truly make a difference.
And that's what makes it feel so doable, right? Like, we don't have to wait for some grand opportunity to be a good person. We can start right now in this very moment.
Exactly. Every interaction, every choice is a chance to practice being a little bit better.
I love that. So as we wrap up this final part of our deep dive, I want to leave you, listener, with a question. What does everyday goodness look like for you? How can you embody that in your own unique way? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to connect with us on social media. And remember, keep diving deep. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're wrapping up our exploration of everyday goodness inspired by the Engage and Grow podcast. It's amazing how many practical takeaways we've uncovered from just one episode.
I agree. It's been a really insightful journey, and I love how this episode emphasizes that being a good person isn't about reaching some unattainable ideal. It's about the small, consistent choices we make each day.
Totally. It's like realizing that we don't have to single-handedly save the world to make a difference. We can start by simply holding the door open for someone, or offering a genuine compliment.
Yeah, those seemingly small acts can create a ripple effect of positivity, which is so important, especially in a world that often feels so negative.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's circle back to the closing message from the Engage and Grow episode. They talk about remembering that being a good person is an ongoing journey, not a destination. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a really important distinction. There's no finish line, no point where we can say, okay, I've achieved peak goodness. It's about continuously showing up, striving to be a little bit better each day, with kindness, compassion, and a willingness to learn and grow.
It's about embracing the messiness of it all, right? Acknowledging that we're going to stumble, make mistakes, have those days where we just don't feel our best.
Absolutely. The Engage and Grow host emphasizes that the goal isn't perfection, it's progress. It's about striving to be the best versions of ourselves, while accepting our limitations and imperfections along the way.
Which, of course, brings us back to self-compassion. It's like this thread that's woven through every single tip we've discussed. It's that essential foundation, the reminder that we deserve kindness, even when we fall short.
And that self-compassion empowers us to extend kindness to others as well. It's like this
Hmm.
overflowing well of positivity that spills out into our interactions and relationships.
Okay, I'm loving this visual. But before we get carried away with metaphors, let's bring it back to practical action for our listener. What's one thing they can do today to incorporate these ideas into their life?
I would encourage our listener to pick one tip from the Engage and Grow episode that really resonated with them and make a conscious effort to put it into practice today. Maybe it's starting their morning with a gratitude practice, incorporating micro resets throughout the day, or simply practicing self-compassion when they feel overwhelmed.
That's great advice. Remember, listener, small steps, consistent action. And what's really cool about this is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to being a good person. It's about discovering what works for you, what aligns with your values, and showing up authentically.
Exactly. And remember, it's never too late to start. Every day is a fresh opportunity to make choices that reflect the kind of person we want to be.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'll leave you with a question to ponder. What does everyday goodness look like for you? How can you embody that in your own unique way? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to connect with us on social media. Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration.
And keep diving deep.